Okay, a couple of initial screw-ups in my first attempt at this, and I decided not to push through, to start over again. First thing, the important screw-up here. Cavalry squadrons are an issue that's discussed in the game quite a bit. Well, that's the number on the cav, not the unit itself. Infantry battalions, on the other hand, which is another thing which is discussed in the game, is just an infantry unit. I've tried to come up with a balance. There's 72 plus 18, something like 90 cav squadrons in the game. And I've thrown them all into foraging. That'll allow me to get 30 foraging points, which will allow me to build 15 of these. And if I get lucky, I'll get to build 3 more. That's not quite enough, I think, to stretch across this whole thing, but I've put enough troops into play to build all of that. Once I build all of that, on the second turn, I'll be able to advance, and I won't have to have as many units in garrison, I think. I hope. Otherwise, I got some problems, because you only have to keep your front line of the parallels garrisoned. The rear lines don't have to be. But in the last game, I had this drastically underpowered. Instead of, 90 points of squadrons, I was counting it as I could get like 30 counters here, which would allow me only 15 build points, which, is a much, I think 10 build points, and then maybe an extra couple off these guys, which got me very little. The first 2 turns, I was not closing the A to B connection. The other thing is, well, there's 4 of these cover boxes in play, 1 in each corner of the map, and I was only covering 3 of them. And then the third thing that I noticed was, well, that, I don't remember. Oh yeah, the effect of the covering boxes. So if you leave the covering boxes empty, it doesn't lose you the game. If the French break through a covering box, it gives them 8 munitions. So I got to be kind of careful about that. You also have to be a little more careful than I thought. And this is where the sequence of play comes into handing me kind of my ass on a platter. You have to be careful that you not only have enough troops to build this turn's builds, but next turn's builds. Now this may be the most delicate part of the game, because I'm required to build a fairly large set of pieces, all in the front line, all that have to be garrisoned, well, or have manpower assigned to them, very quickly. Now, I don't have to put all my cav here. If I didn't put all my cav here, I would need less infantry at the beginning. But I want to complete this in 2 turns and extend my lines further beyond it in both areas, both my siege areas. Because otherwise, I have the requirement to garrison that entire line. So that means I have like 11 units in each box. Now, the French are aware of how many units I have in the covering boxes, but not what they are. But they can kind of look at the colors and make guesses. Hey, all the Brits are here. I bet you Marlborough and his leader are there. All the German forces are in these boxes. One of them is going to be Eugen. The Dutch may be the weakest thing. Let's go pick on them. But they actually have a lot of minor leaders. So I probably will go after the German forces if I'm going to sortie. And a sortie doesn't seem like a bad idea. When I first looked at the game, I said, a sortie's stupid right now. I'll wait until there's more forces committed. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of troops may be committed early on. Well, we'll see. The French get the opportunity to see just how much the British are building, and that gives them a pretty good idea. Well, they also know the numbers in these boxes of how much of a sortie they have to send. But here's the danger of a sortie. If they send a sortie out with, say, all their forces, well, the English can just walk up to the assault areas, assuming they get this final line here, the first line, and they can make an assault and gain bastion territory. So I've got to leave enough to at least defend whatever's in reach. But this early part of the game, the Allies have a lot of building to do, hence less units in the boxes, and the French have less fear of an attack succeeding, so they can commit more of their force. So I can bust my way through and get some additional armaments that way. I have my starting ammo, which is 74 siege gun ammo and 11 mortar ammo. I probably don't care about mortar ammo. It's less effective. So we'll start here. The French field army doesn't intervene until turns 3 and 8. Well, 8 is just the Chevalier. There's no replacements I have to worry about. There's basically one per nationality, except the Brits, I think, don't get one, where I just get to replace units. That's not an issue right now. There's not going to be any attrition on this first turn. Ammunition supply, I've already marked the French down. The Allies don't get any siege battery fire. There's nothing to shoot at for the French, and the Allies have no ammo, but we're not going to see any battery fire happening until we get close to the time of an assault. There's no reason to waste your ammo early in the game, as was historically done. So now it's time for the construction, and I count these points, and I said there was 90 here, which means I'll have 30 construction points there. I get to roll some dice. This guy produces 4 on a 1 through 4, which is successful, and 3 on a 1 through 3, which is successful, so I add 7 more points. Each thing I build costs me at least 2. So if we divide that by 2, we're going to get 18 parallels to build. And at the beginning of the game, you got to connect these. So we'll do that. And that's not going to, I think, cover the whole board. That's 9 of them. 10, 11, 12, 13. Let's fill these suckers in. We'll go to 14. Pushing another one here. And yes, this is just a mechanical task at this point. Looks like I'm only going to get 16 of these built. I didn't leave enough troops behind. I thought I had more troops in play. All right, well, that's what I have out there. We've almost closed it off. All these units have to be there to build these entrenchments. We swing down. We're not going to have an assault phase. There's no operational movement for the Allies. They're just building their entrenchments. Had I gotten the 18, I think I could have closed this off. Now, I got to be careful that I've got room here for these two. Yeah. You know, it's a game of a little bit of estimation there. But they should be aligned. Okay. So we're not going to go through the assault phase. What we are going to go through is the operational movement for the French and their own construction. They'd get to repair stuff. Well, the biggie for them is operational movement. What are they going to throw into the sortie box over here? I'll make a quick decision on that, and I think we're going to see a sortie this time because those forces look less scary than they did last game. Okay, so the French have decided to launch a rather major sortie, 2 brigades and their dragoons on an attack, and actually I'm going to throw Boufflers himself into that as my strategic leader. I don't want to lose him, but I'm going to target one of the 2 German territories. I don't know which one to hit. Size-wise, there's no real clue, so odd, even. And I get Lieutenant General Spar, which is where I'd rather hit. Means I miss good old Agen. And now the Allies, basically a screen is put up at this point between the 2. And you can just fold a piece of paper. Now the ally is going to stretch his units out, and he can put them in any order he likes. Along the front line. And the question is, well, what do I want to do with my A-rated units? And I'm going to kind of deploy them not in the middle, but to the sides. I'll throw Brock here on these 2 units, and Spar will be here. Now, at the same time, the French is also making a line with as many units. He knows how many units the Allies have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That are going to be aligned with these and then with a second row. But he can't see what these are at the time. I'm going to peel away as I set that up. I'll kind of randomize the French setup to some extent. But I want the best units in the front, I think. Shield is withdrawn from the 2, and the 2 lines are compared. The French first line will be moved directly adjacent to the English line, or to the Allied line. We don't really have to do that, but the main thing is to make it clear who's facing who here. Okay, so if the Allies had cavalry or dragoon cavalry, they could screen off French units. They did not do this. I've got all my cav busy collecting materials. That's a bad move, I think. We'll see. But that's going to mean I'm at more risk here because the French do outnumber me. Of course, the question is, if I overextended the French, I don't think I did. I mean, if I measure from here, yes, I can make it in there. But it's going to take me all my moves to get to the assault position, basically. I'll be taking fire for a long time, going through some iffy terrain. I don't know if I can take it. If I could take a position in the bastion, though, the game's over, basically. I mean, I'll be able to just channel more and more troops up there. I'll have knocked guns back so that they're not positioned where they can hit me. And I'll have ruined this experience. Maybe I'll try. Okay. Now, for each unit, we're going to roll on this sortie table here. And we'll do 1 or 2 of these to see what we... that's not it. I got dice in my hand, so I can't pick things up. Alright, this is the sortie table. Add 1 if the morale of the sorting unit is better than the enemy by 1. 2 if it's 2 better. -1 if it goes that way. Compare the strategic leader ratings and add it, positive or negative. Now Boufflers is going to give a +1. And then the tactical rating is also going to be applied to this. And if we get a result, what happens? We get an elimination. Eliminations are only on a 2 through 4. All right. Let's see what we got here. We'll use red for the Allied, blue for the French. But I have no fingers. And I kind of need this. All right, I'm going to put the leader behind the line here to show this. So the French attacking are at -1 for the morale difference, but they get a +1 for the leader here and another +1 here, but it's not really a +1, is it? You want low numbers. So this whole table is skewed in the wrong direction. And I don't know if they mentioned that. No, they don't mention that. There are definitely some problems with this system. So I've got -2 to the die roll for the French. For the Allied German forces, I've essentially got wait, no. I'm at -1. Cancel that out. I'm at -1 for the French, +1 for the Allies. Yeah, plus being bad. Okay, the French don't hit, the Allies don't hit. So now we go to the next one. Here the French have a -1, -2, and the Allies have a +2. Okay, -2 for the French is a 3. I've killed this unit. I'll put it over here. It has an opportunity to come back. And I'll continue down the line for these. I'll come back when we get the outflank. Okay, so the Germans were struck 3 times there. Wow, there's all kind of little boxes. It's trying to recognize faces there on my view of the screen. So now we go to the flanking combat, which is these 3 guys. We're going to compare the strategic leader rating to the strategic leader rating of the of the 2 leaders, and a tactical rating will also be applied in. So I get a -1, and this is an A-level unit. That gets me a hit, and I'll take a good A-rated unit and hit that. And now I get to do this twice more. Well, the first one's a B, but I get an extra -1 because I have the tactical leader. That's a hit. I get to choose another. And you can see I'm just wiping these guys out. But I think I'm going to be attacking the bastion. This is going to be a really odd game of this for me. Normally I play very conservatively. This is the first time I've done that. And this is the final time an A-rated unit with a -2. And that is also a hit. Okay. We had a casualty. I rolled a 6 on one of the dice. So this guy's out of play for a couple of turns. These forces go back to their holding box or covering box, and these guys go back to the sortie box, which means they're not available to defend the walls, and that could be a problem. It was pointed out to me, although the comment may have been removed, I don't know, I'm having trouble with YouTube comments. Like, I get reports of them in my email, and then sometimes they're not there for a while, but then they show up. But one of the issues of the comment was something I completely forgot about, or didn't read in the rules particularly. Whenever you build a parallel or any entrenchment works, any of the field works, through terrain that's not clear, you pay double. That's okay in this condition. I had extra points, I believe, that I couldn't fulfill. So I would have been paying 4 extra points. I think I had that last time. Let me see if I can remember. I had 37. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 16 means I only spent 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. I'm gonna push this just a tiny bit, but it's hard to tell where you're supposed to actually be on this map. So, you know, it's a game of approximation. Alright. So we're starting turn 2 here. Unfortunately, I should have plugged my camera in last night, I guess. It's not a field army turn. We have some replacements because of that engagement. So I get 1 German per turn, and it's only Germans I've lost, so I'll take one of these. And I'll put him over here for now, but I may have to rearrange my forces during operational movement. And if this fails again, if I swamp the Citadel, I don't know what to do. To start over again? Maybe. Because I'm not getting the games I'm used to here. I usually don't commit to what I just did for the French. No attrition. Siege battery fire. So this is kind of interesting. My guns are all back here. Do I want to fire them in the hopes of breaching some of these walls that I could reach right now? Well, let's think really hard about whether or not we're going to fight. The problem is that I have siege construction first. In which case I can make some ground up here. Of course so it's going to take me 4 turns from here, but if I construct a decent amount of stuff, and that could be, you know, pushing a couple of saps forward and building a parallel here, I'm actually not that far from the bastion. In which case it would be nice to knock down some of those walls. Well, let's take a look at my range, because we've got to think really hard here. I think I've got a chance of winning it because of that stupid sortie. Siege battery fire. I'm going to be shooting at bastions of 6. I'll need 5s to hit. Now, I'm firing from way back here, so I'm going to be at -2 over here, -2 over here. I'm not going to be able to do dick by firing my cannons from behind the start line. So we won't do it. Which means I get to go to the construction phase. In the construction phase, I think I've still got... Yeah, operational movement comes after. I've still got 90 points here, which will give me 30 construction points. And I roll my dice. None from DeMay. None from De Riggs or whatever. So I've only got 30 points to spend on construction. We're going to have to fill this out first, and then we start building forward. Okay, another screw up I found, which actually weakens these covering boxes even more. I can only place new construction. When I place new construction, it takes 2 units, not 1. Crappies. This is this game has always been more trouble for me than Sevastopol for whatever reason. maybe we'll see why in Sevastopol, whether it's just, gee, I'm more familiar with the rules from this one after I play through it once, but I seem to think that the rules are just different, and this one actually feels more painful to me in a lot of ways. Okay, so that means I'm not doing an assault, because this new stuff that I'm building isn't going to be close enough it's not going to have room for additional units. Basically, if it only took me one unit to build the entrenchment, I'd have room for another unit, but each of these locations can only hold one thing, or can only hold two things. So if I've got two constructing it, I can't put any additional in it, which makes some sense. Right now, Jesus, 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm trying to figure out, can I even build all my constructions, or do these guys behind the start line, and did I cheat again, this time building too many parallels? I'm not too worried about that. I suffered pretty hard from that attack on the covering box. I don't see a way of going back and fixing that. I can say, well, we had magical construction, but right now I don't want to cheat again. So if I have not enough people out here, and that's an issue, then I'm just not going to take all the construction. Okay, so it specifies you can take from anywhere on the map. So apparently you're not limited to what's just lying around behind these start lines. Therefore, I should not have had anybody behind the start lines. I don't think I did last time. Anyhow, this is the constructions I've made. Pushing forward into here, paying double for a couple of these. Building a gun gallery here. My hope is to start bombarding the walls fairly soon. I would have liked to have built another one over here, but I just didn't have the points for that in that double terrain. You kind of don't want to build in this kind of terrain. There's a reason. If you look at the parallel, the way it's drawn, there's actually a long parallel here, but it goes through this, and then a sort of line going up this way. But I feel like extending from here, getting 3, now I can drill upward directly and then start another line closer. With this, I'm planning on driving a line closer from this direction and from that direction. You really want to get right up against the wall, otherwise your troops are going to get slaughtered incoming. You want to be within the 100 yards if you can. The problem here, though, is I'm using lots and lots of my troops building these entrenchments and the parallels. And my covering boxes are going to be weaker because I have less units. So what that's going to mean is maybe the French sortie again. But they can't afford to do a sortie of the size they did last time, I don't think. Hard to tell. Depends on the melee chart. What's the effect of the wall? I'll have to look that up. I couldn't launch an assault this turn from here. I could have done it from back here, but man, I don't think I'd reach. But as we get closer and closer to the walls, the French are going to have to take defending those walls seriously. This one, though, they can keep pretty lightly defended, so I can afford to put units over in the sortie box again. So I'm going to look through the rules again, try to figure out what the effect of a breach is on an assault. I don't remember. I'm used to the Acre and Tyre and Constantinople where there's a terrain effects chart that explains everything. Here, there's not. And it's not the same kind of game is what it comes down to. All right. Okay. So the effect of the wall damage seems to be a breach doesn't matter. But if you get it down to level 1, you take away a single defensive bonus on this chart. And given the plus minuses as described in the rules, I don't trust them. There may be an additional effect on the morale table. But yeah, I assume you get a -1 if you're attacking into an almost breached wall. And you get a plus, the French get a +1 if they're attacking it into the assault positions or into allied positions in the bastions. The allies don't have any defenses in their favor there. Everything's facing the other way. It's designed to be retaken. Now the other thing is this morale table. When you take a morale effect, I do not see any modifiers. The Bastion's level strength is added to your morale die roll. So if you're in a Bastion of any strength, well, if you're in a level 4 Bastion, not much is going to be done to you. You might get a result on here, maybe, but it's not going to do much. So those Bastions really do have to come down. Even a +1 is a fairly decent bonus there. Also, units can retreat through each other. That's clarified in the errata. And even guns and stuff are able to retreat. So we're not going to destroy stuff that way. All right. So that's kind of getting a feel for how the assault phase works. Probably should have covered that in the rules, but this is so dim to me that I really have to kind of struggle my way through. Hopefully people who are just looking don't really want all the rules anyway. And people who want the rules, watch the whole damn thing, yeah? Because I'll get them eventually, right? Maybe. At least with a little help. Alright, so the next thing we're up to is the operational movement. I have to figure out where my allies are going to be. I don't have to worry. These guys are all constructing. Everybody else I have to decide what holding boxes they're going to be in, whether I need all this cav to get me supplies, because I'm very worried about another sortie. Now, with another sortie, like I said, the French have to worry about the possibility that I can launch, 14 units at them. But they're going to get a fire chance at some point. Yeah, at the beginning of next turn, they get the siege battery fire. They didn't want to take it this turn. They may want to break things up next turn. And that may make it easier if they can use their firepower. They could actually do a full strength sortie if they can break up all my construction of the parallels there. Lots of things to think about. All right. Well, I think I found the part of Lille I do not like. And this is what I remember. Yeah, it's been a long time since I played it. But it's this constant rebalancing of the covering boxes, always having to try to figure out how many points do I need in the covering boxes, how many do I need over here, to do this for the foraging. Do I need to prepare for an assault next turn? But the biggie is counting out what you and balancing what's in the covering boxes, and it's just this annoyance. And then of course, the French making the decision of whether or not they're going to sortie and where their troops are going to line out. It's always just been this incredibly mechanical annoyance to the game. There's thought involved in it, but there's so much mechanics involved in it where you're flipping pieces, you're counting your troops, trying to figure out where to balance everything, whether or not you can afford to make the attack this turn, whatever. When an annoyance reaches to having to make lots of simple calculations, it really disturbs me. And this game excels in that annoyance. To show how fucking annoying this is, I first divided up my infantry. Now I have one less, which I put over with Marlborough because he's got better leadership than most people. Legion has doesn't have an extra leader, but Marlborough has a British leader over with him. So that kind of comes out with some balance. Now I've got these, and I gotta fucking count them up. I hate counting. So we've got 36 plus 8 plus 21 plus a whole bunch. 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, plus 20. And let's see if this works out. It should come out to 94, 5, 6. Alright, it looks like it comes to 91, but I probably miscounted or something. Who the fuck knows? You know? I mean, alright. So now, here's what's important. Over here, every 3 points of cavalry, whatever the type, counts to get me supplies. Over in these stupid ass boxes, and I mean, this is about all the decision making you make in the game. So if you like decision making, this is your best part of the game in a lot of ways. But I want the story, and this doesn't interfere with the story, but it sure makes it more painful to get to. It could be done a lot more smoothly with less pieces and less counting and everything. Okay. So my stupid ass cav, 2 squadrons of dragoons or 1 squadron of regulars. So I want my dragoons in covering boxes if I can. But I gotta balance this out so that I get exactly ×3 here, ×2 here, and I haven't counted correctly. And we know this more or less, because one of my 2 times I came up with 91, I came up with 91, I think. Who the hell knows? This time I came up with another number, about 2 points off from there, 93 or something like that. I don't fucking know. Anyway, please excuse my aggravation, but you know, there are some things that really irk me. And having to just do stupid, semi-mental, by semi-mental I mean stupid little fucking actions like counting or something like that in large quantities where you're liable to make little mistakes all over the place. That just immediately turns me off a game. It's why I don't like a lot of stupid ass Euros, to tell you the truth, because that's all there is to them. Dominant species. I spent the whole goddamn game counting, and this one it does the same thing. Now I love what this game tries to do. Unlike Dominant Species, which doesn't seem to try to do anything. It tries to be an abstract game where you get to count a lot. But this thing, I really want. Beautiful map. A siege where I get to, you know, build these parallels and come forward and make this attack. But it is just ruined for me by the actions I have to take to enjoy this story. Whereas, much, much simpler situations, without these individual stupid-ass units and this, that, and the other, where there's just a comparison done, where you don't have to fiddle about rearranging your whole defenses every time that you take a turn, that would be a lot smoother. And you wouldn't lose much. You wouldn't lose much flexibility here. Maybe some cards to handle different forces and just apply them to the things. Because when it comes down to it, the tactical actions of attacking these bastions, they're so minuscule. I mean, that's not what the game is about. The game is about digging the lines forward, bombarding. It's like the other siege games. When you come to the tactical, you kind of want to say, why the hell did they bother adding so much detail on this? Keep it at the same level of kind of abstraction that the rest of the game is, where I'm, you know, laying the siege works down. That's what the focus should be. It certainly shouldn't be on counting and keeping a balance of numbers all around. You know, it's just an obnoxious thing. Okay, hopefully I calmed down a little bit. Went through a little bit of the agony of setting up the French. This is their operational movement phase. They're able to pull units, in this case, out of the sortie box and enhance their defenses. But I'm still not threatening much of the line, so I've kept the defenses fairly light. I've pulled the dragoons out. That gave me a little bit of strengthening here. I feel fairly comfortable that that is sufficient as long as the walls hold. Of course, you can see the Allies have thrown some 24-pounders up in that gun gallery I'm constructing. So they're planning on pounding this wall, I think. Of course, I get to fire back first and maybe wreck the gun gallery at the very least, and maybe some of these others. Right now I have to decide where my sortie is going to be. Again, I don't really know anything except numbers and kind of colors. I see all the red over there, so I'm pretty sure Marlboro's there. I see these two as green. So I'm again going to target the Germans because I've hit Germans already. I'll randomize which one. And we'll go after good old Lieutenant General Spar again, who's going to set up his troops, etc. And then we'll take a peek at that before I roll all the dice for it and show you the result. In this case, the French line ends up being, again, larger than the Allied line by 3 units. But 3 units is important because the Dragoon can screen exactly 3 units in the second line. These guys go back and will not interfere in this battle again. And in fact, the Dragoons aren't going to interfere either. And now we just do a roll-off and see where the casualties land. And you can see, if you look at the quality, the Germans actually have fairly high-quality troops here, mainly A's and B's, facing equally high-quality French troops. So we'll see, what the result out of this. And the capability of Boufflers, again, yeah, I know, I don't pronounce things correctly. Again, knocks out 3 more German units. Remember, one of them gets returned each turn. And a French unit of the 3rd Brigade. So, since we get French units back too, this is again a victory by the French, but they haven't increased their armaments. They haven't gotten a breakthrough yet. That's kind of important, but then so is the loss of troops that the Allies suffer from each of these sorties. These sorties are going to continue getting weaker and weaker, though, as the parallels begin to expand. So we got to do something about them, too. And what we do there is nothing. We did our operational movement. Next turn, we will be able to bombard the parallels at the same time that the Allies are able to bombard our walls. And we'll push... You know what I haven't been doing? I haven't been counting casualties. Son of a bitch. I don't know if they matter too much. They do, at least for the Allies. So I have to worry about exceeding... Yeah, they do matter. So I lost one of these. 1, 2... That's what the 400's for. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've lost 9 units. I know that. 30. So I'm at 3,600 Allied losses at this point. The French have lost 400. 1 unit. Now, I'm worried about a 12,000 point deficit. I'm a quarter of the way there already. However, there are more opportunities for French losses. I'm going to load this one up as I move to turn 3. Turn 3 is kind of interesting. I'm going to be getting my Lieutenant General back, but this is the turn Vendôme comes in and makes some sort of demonstration. That may mean I cannot cover the boxes this turn. That I'll have to pull everything out of the boxes and either throw it against Vendôme or put it behind my lines here. I'm going to load this one up now, I guess. And please forgive my anger, but, it's part of the reality of who I am. When I'm faced with something like that, I start cussing up a storm.